All right, guys, we are back at it with next episode for the Kodawari podcast, KodaCast. And today we have Neal joining us. And I've been, as soon as we've kind of started doing this, planning out this podcast and really getting into the idea of connecting with people in the car culture, the car scene, Neal was at the very top of that list. I don't know if you remember, but the first time I met you was at Tom's shop in Exmont, Mississauga.
All right. Yeah.
When he first opened up, and he was like, "Yo, this guy's coming with an R32. He's a super OG in the scene." I was like, "Holy shit, who's this guy?" And then you rolled in, and yeah, that was the first time. So I know you're a big part of, the Toronto scene, and you've got lots of stories to share. So that's why, it was, a big priority to have and have you a part of this. So thank you for coming in and
Thanks for having me. Super OG, just another word for saying you're super old, but all right.
But let's get into like where did this journey, this passion start for you?
Yeah, okay. Well, probably started modding cars back. Well, I started modding my first car back in 2001. And basically, there's a funny story with that. Like, I had just graduated from university, got my first job, got my first paycheck in hand. And first thing I wanted to do as any Asian kid is go buy a car. And at that time, 2000, is I wanted a Type R. Every kid wanted Asian kid actually just wanted an Integra Type R. And I don't think anyone would believe me unless if there was other people with me, and I do have a couple friends that were with me at the time when I tried to do this. I went to 3 Acura dealerships around Mississauga, trying to buy an Integra Type R, and none of them would give me the time of day. Like, none of them would show me inside. Like, I just wanted to sit in one, right? I had it ready for the down payment and everything. And I still remember being at the Aaron Mills Town Acura, right? And I had a buddy with me, and I was just there. Can I get a brochure? Just sit in one, like I'm looking to buy a Type R. And he's like straight up to me, it looks like, yeah, we have none available, for look. And he was talking to me in front of this glass wall, right? And right outside the wall, you can see the parking lot, and there were like 10 Type R's lined up there, right? Or like not 10, but like, like about 7 or 8 or whatever, right? And I was just sitting there like, really? And I was like there, and it's, oh, those are all pre-sold. I can't show you, whatever. And I was like, really? And I was just so disgruntled at that, right? And as I said, I went to 3 Acura dealerships for that, and none of them would give me the time of day. And just so happens one of the days I was like in a BMW dealership, and I was just looking, and I wasn't even intending on buying. It's like, oh, I'm not even buying. The guy, a sales guy, took me out for a test drive in that, right? And I was like, what? I wasn't even intending to buy or anything like that, and he still let me go out and test drive one. I thought that was pretty cool. So then I sort of changed platforms at that point. Like, I wanted something JDM or whatever, but then after that, BMW was still a little bit out of my price range at that time. So then I started looking at like VW, right? Something Euro, and I went that way instead. But after that, I vowed never to buy a Honda or Acura product at that point, and I never did since then. Like there's so, and sort of hard because Honda does have some very cool products, as you know, or whatever. And yeah, I just haven't owned one since. But yeah, I eventually, yeah, as I said, like I moved over and I bought a VW 1.8 turbo Jetta, and I gotta admit the lights got me. Like, I don't know if you've been into a 2000 VW at that time, but they were the first to have that white, blue, and red interior dash color combination, or even the door handle buttons lit up and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's a little omission of me being a little bit of a racer back in the day. I saw the lights, it's like, oh, this is it. I want this. Plus the 1.8 turbo. That turbo was awesome. Like that turbo that's the size of a hairdryer. Like, you could rev that thing, and like, at like 3,000 RPM, you could hear that blow off valve like rip, like, all over the place, right? Like, no turbo spooled up at like 2,500 RPM like this. It was like crazy. But that was my first car. So that's the first car I started really mod is the 1.8 turbo, and the Jetta, and that one got me into a team called R Squad. So at this time, that's probably like 2002, 2003. And the big thing with R Squad is that they were an OG team uh, built by a couple cool guys. Their main guy was a guy named Derek Chen and Pierre Tien. They were the leaders of that team, and they invited me into the team. And that team was the first team was that was sponsored by Bridgestone, corporate Bridgestone, and they this is a different level of sponsorship. I don't think you see this type. Well, I guess you do in a sense, but they sponsored the whole team, and they basically enabled us to travel to shows. Like we were hitting like 30 shows a year across the states, all across the East Atlantic area, down to like as far away as down to like Miami and stuff like that, right? And that level of sponsorship, I don't think you really see anymore, but that was really cool. And but yeah, that's basically where it began.
So Toyo was the one that was the company that sponsored most of that,
Oh,
or
Bridgestone.
Bridgestone? Okay, gotcha.
Bridgestone,
Bridgestone.
yeah. And as I said, like I believe they were like the first, we were the first team to be sponsored by a global corporation. I think Hybrid was after that. It could be close. There's a team Hybrid in Cali that was also sponsored by BF Goodrich, and they were basically not a competitor, but like on that level, right? They were the only other team at that time on that level, so which was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting story with the Integra Type R and the Acura brand. And when I listen to that, like that fucking breaks my heart, because here you have someone who is so passionate about a product, a brand, a dream car of theirs. You've gone through university, gotten your job, you saved up your money, and you're ready to to make this purchase.
Yeah.
And 3 dealerships, no one gave you the time of day. No one showed an ounce of kindness to help foster or help like inspire and grow that passion of yours with that Integra Type R.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was too young looking or whatever. That
yeah.
Asian gene thing make me look like I was 15 or something like that, and they didn't give me time of day or whatever. But yeah, I was sort of surprised at that too, right? So I don't know. Maybe it was a different story if I was in Markham, but the 3 dealerships were in Mississauga as well, right? So
Yeah.
But
Like, don't get me wrong, there's probably a lot of guys that come in there just to want to try and get a test drive. Like, maybe you don't give them a test drive, but at least let them see the car, sit in it, or like explain it to them and show, at least let you know the process for maybe potentially obtaining one.
Yeah.
Instead of, just kind of telling you to buzz off and then really making you shift from not wanting to ever purchase a Acura Honda product. That's huge, man. Like if I was in charge of a company for a brand that ever heard of any of my employees treating a potential customer like that,
I don't know, but it's sort of weird. That actually sort of reminds me of another. Well, this is more of a funnier story. So later on, this is after I had my R32, and a good friend of mine, Arthur Chang, he had his WRX STI. We were all excited because they had brought the Lancer over, right? But it's the base model, right? It's just a front wheel drive car or whatever, right? But it's the fact that the shell is here, right? And it's sort of cool, right? You're always looking at the Evo and whatever, and it's like, wow, that's so cool. We'll never get to see that. But they brought the Lancer over, and we're at some Mitsubishi dealership, and we're just checking it out or whatever, right? And sales guy comes right up to us and starts explaining the car, right? And he's like, oh yeah, we're going through all the stuff, and we're like, oh yeah, this is cool. And he's talk about the Lancer up, and has the rally yard option, so it's a little dressed up or whatever, right? Then he looks at us and says, and then it's like he's like, yeah, and it has 100 horsepower, right? And we sat back, we're like, wow, right? And Arthur, his build is nuts, right? And it's like, man, you have 100 horsepower at each wheel. Like, this guy but you should have seen the enthusiasm of this sales guy. Like he was, like passionate about it. It's like, this thing has 100 horsepower, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I almost got sucked in. I was like, yeah, really? It's like,
Was he like, was it authentic or was he just
no,
really
no, no,
passionate?
no. He's really passionate. It was
Yeah.
good. It was like, and he's working, trying to explain to us the whole part of the car, right?
Yeah.
And I guess he was treating us like, and you wouldn't know, like, you wouldn't know if us, we've been in the scene for a couple of years now. We've built a couple cars or whatever, right? And he's selling a car, but yeah, it was just that was another funny moment in terms of dealership and salespeople. So yeah,
Yeah. That's funny. I think sometimes we take for granted how the car scene has evolved and the cars that we have access to. You know,
yeah,
back then it was like the JDM and European markets had all the sickest cars,
yeah. We always get shortchanged.
and
Yeah,
then to finally see where things at, where with new Civic Type R stateside in North America, potentially even something as exciting as the new Corolla with new GR Yaris all-wheel drive rally inspired drivetrain. That's dope. That's big.
yeah. I was always stunned at that. I never understood why North America always gets shafted. It's just like, it's not even just the JDM cars. Like even the North American, Ford, right? Ford, Cosworth, Focus, right? They build a Ford Cosworth Focus and it only sells in Europe and not in the US. Like, how could you not, offer that product to your home base, but, offer it overseas, right? So I don't know. Always felt previously we always used to get the short end of the stick in terms of options, in terms of cars being offered here. So, but yeah, I don't know why. And yeah, like even Canada versus the US, like I don't know if you know, like back in the day when you used to go for sponsorships, this is when we were with our squadron. As I said, Bridgestone was a big step up for us in terms of not just us, but just Canada in general, because Canada used to be overlooked so often. Like if you would go to a sponsorship, say like H&R or like Teen or whatever, right? You'd call up and you'd submit your proposal and you'd go and talk to the rep. And as soon as you say you're from Canada, they're like, oh, we're not interested. Oh, we don't have a market up there, or like we don't deal with that up there, right? And that was a major thing for us. Like I told you, like going back to our squad and us hitting those 30 shows across the East Atlantic. Major reason why is because we had to hit those U.S. shows to get the exposure to satisfy basically the U.S. Sponsors or whatever, right? But yeah, for the most part, as soon as you say like I'm from Toronto, they would hang up. I'm from Canada, you have to go Toledo, and then Toledo, okay. All right, you got me there. Like, well, okay, what do you got? Right? It was just so ridiculous. But yeah, it was, and that was, that's always been one big thing. I've always like, people talk about Cali, they talk about New York, they talk about Miami, the scene, right? And Toronto always gets overlooked, right, in terms of size. And then you see stuff, and people bring up photos of like Ortefa or like Dark Knights from back in the day, right? Or like Importfest, and they're like, "What? That's Toronto? Like, that's Canada? There's stuff like that size up there?" And it's like, yeah, and it's not to say, as I said, it's not to say that Ortefa or these things were the first. We've had it since back in 2000, right? And yeah, as I said, like everyone doesn't pay attention too much. Well, they didn't pay attention to Toronto too much about that. They always felt us as followers or whatever, right? But there've been some instances like like Passmag, right? Like for the longest time, people didn't realize Passmag was a Canadian company down in the States, right? And even like one big step towards this group, Top Tuners. That was huge. There were a bunch of Canadian builders that got together and they went down and built cars to compete in SEMA, and they won in SEMA, right? And that was huge to
Where were they based out of?
Oh,
Like,
all over. A couple of guys are like from Toronto, Montreal, New Brunswick. Yeah, scattered around as a team that they just gathered around to uh, to to build project cars for SEMA. Yeah, but yeah, that was huge. Like stuff like that. I always find interesting, and I want to see more of. It's just basically bringing more attention to Canada and more specifically Toronto. Yeah, like back in the day, there was a competition. Well, Passback has tuner battlegrounds, right? And I built the R32, and I went and redid it with the Rocket Bunny kit to try and win that year. And the main reason was because like tuner battlegrounds, right, is a pass mag competition, right? And for the fact is that Toronto has never won. Right? Like we haven't had a car from Toronto win or even get into close to the semifinals or quarterfinals, right? And I think Winnipeg got a couple wins. No knock on Winnipeg. I know Anthony and those guys, they build amazing cars or whatever, but still, like Toronto's big, and to say that we haven't won that, and it's not to say, well, I don't want to say it's a popularity contest, but it semi is because like the base is able to help support that car's path to the competition through voting. And Winnipeg has a population of about, I don't know, a mil, and we got a population of 8 mil, and you're telling me we can't gather community support around our own car to go and get one into the, not even to win, just like into the quarter or semifinals of that competition. So that was that mission, to try and break that stereotype, but yeah, that didn't happen. But yeah, I find Toronto needs a bit more, not pride, but like we need a bit more respect in our scene. I think our scene is right up there with everyone else's, and we should be labeled up there.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Is the tuner battleground still ongoing? Like they still
Yeah,
do
they,
that?
they still
Okay.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. A big part of what we want to do in content that we want to create around here is at Kodawari is to showcase the Toronto scene, to showcase car culture in Toronto. Um, of course, people are always going to sleep on Canadians, always going to sleep on Toronto. Um, that didn't stop a lot of big things to come out of Toronto. Like you're talking about our banner in the shop, champs.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's why we have that up there,
yeah,
and to inspire and to remind everyone on my team as well as myself is that anything's possible. Um, Drake putting us on the map, people like The Weeknd and stuff like that,
yeah.
just really repping us hard and doing it in a big way. And we're gonna have to earn that respect. We're gonna have to earn that audience and that community. So that's a cool goal. Maybe
And to touch on that, that's exactly the thing, right? Like I'm just hoping. Oh, I don't know if it's changed since then. I always find it like in Toronto, it's hard to make it inside of Toronto from Toronto. Like I don't know. They used to have a nickname for Toronto, like the screw face capital, right? It's basically we piss and shit on our own people. Like we never go and support our own, right? And like even for Drake, he had to go and make it popular first down in the U.S. for us to basically accept him, right? And I see that with most stuff. Like you have to make it big in the U.S. and then once you make it big in the U.S., then Toronto adopts you, right? And I hope like now that sort of Drake mentality is now sort of fixed that, especially now that he's put so much emphasis in loving Toronto, right, and putting it on the map and putting it as a cool place to be from, and to say that yeah, I'm from Toronto, I made it, I'm gonna make it in Toronto with Toronto first and then go out, right? So, but yeah, I'm hoping for like that just to spread out, not just in like hip hop, let's like just in culture in general, right? So yeah, I'd like to see that.
yeah, it's interesting. I wonder why that is. Like obviously everyone's always seen like the States as the big brother to Canada, and maybe they got all the flashy lights and the this and that, and maybe
It's like I don't know. It's just a mentality. Like I don't know if it's like everyone's too cool to go to school type deal. Like for example, right? And here's a example between like us in Montreal. You go to a show in Montreal, you give out giveaways, right? And just straight out giveaways. And Montreal, like just a keychain. People like grab for it or whatever. Scramble for it, right? You throw that same keychain out in a Toronto show, packed out, people would step away, and just let it fall to the ground. And just like, I don't know if like, I'm too good for that or whatever or what it is. But yeah, I just don't know if it's like a mentality type thing, but yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting now that you actually bring that up. That's because, yeah, I know you've been a part of the car scene. You've gone, you know, a lot of places in the States. Have you been to Japan and like SEMA, like all the big shows and stuff like that too?
I've been to Japan twice, but not for cars though. It
Yeah.
was actually for weddings for two of my friends. But one of the trips I was able to make it over to see Kiyomura and his shop, which was pretty cool. Yeah. His shop is about like smaller than this, like your space here, right? But it's just amazing to see, like a space that size, but then the notoriety of Rocket Bunny and how big it is worldwide, right? It's crazy to see, right? So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I find these shops, these brands over in Japan, and how like how strong their brand is, how strong their following is. And you'd think that they'd have this massive facility with like an army of people just making body kits and all that. And then you find out what it really is, which is a small little shop, with just a very passionate, you know, team, a very passionate owner, kind of just not giving a fuck. And they're just like, I'm gonna do it my way, and it's just authentic to who they are. They're not trying to please anyone, and that's pretty cool because that was that was Rocket Money, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Build it and they will come mentality. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he like, do you know much about his story? Like I'm not too familiar with Rocket Money myself. Like how is he as a person? How you know what gravitates you to his brand and just his style of.
I don't know too much about him personally, but just his sense of style. Yeah, like I didn't even know. Like he used to be a designer, from my understanding, of Liberty Walk. So like and then even and I forgot the other brand too. There was another one he designed for too, and you look at that and it's just like wow. And all three of those brands are powerful and they're good. And you're like, this all came from one guy, right? You at the beginning you're thinking it's three separate guys, but then it's actually you find out it's this one guy who has the vision to see these body kits through, right? And so. Yeah, it's just his visualization, like in terms of aesthetics, is pretty cool. So it's one of those things like, in terms of aesthetics. I don't think it could be bought. Like it's one of those things. Like you see people like, and I don't want to knock anyone, but like there's cars you see, and you're like, obviously these paid a lot of money. Like there's lots of money being spent on it, but at least it's just my personal taste. You look at it and it's just like. I don't feel it. Like it's just not what there. But then you'll see another car and it's like, yeah, that's dead on, right? And there's that certain aesthetic look, and that the majority likes. And you either get that, you either see that, or yeah, you just don't, right? So yeah.
Yeah, that's right on the money. There's and I've noticed that too, from from when my first experiences at car shows and being in the car community back when I was first getting into things with Tom and Next Mile Mississauga, was there were builds that people just like, it was crazy amount of money, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean, in my opinion, doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
Because the execution, it's the little details that really bring together a build.
Yeah.
The wheels, the fitment,
Fitment is huge. Like
the colors, how they contrast with each other, and how the car flows, the lines of the car. It's really really important.
Yeah, yeah, and as I said, like it's one of those things. Is either you have it or not, and so like, and again, that's just personal preference. I always tell people like you never build a car for someone else, right? And because this is the reason why, because everyone has different tastes or whatever, right? As at the end of the day, especially if you're spending a lot, just make sure at the end of the day when you look at that car, you love it, right? And then even if I shit on it or you shit on it, it doesn't really matter
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, that is what you want it to look like, and that's what you love you know, that's all you, right? Like, do it proudly, right? That's your thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
and it's harder to kind of stick and encourage that kind of mentality nowadays because like you see what's trending and we have social media and
yeah.
everyone's like, fuck, what's trending right now? What TikTok video can I make? What kind of fitment can I do? What kind of like what kind of trend can I jump on so that I get this notoriety, so I get this chance of going viral? And yeah, it's really easy for everyone to kind of just be enamored by that and kind of like you know kind of let that kind of consume and persuade their builds. But yeah, you're right. It should be just build it for yourself.
Yeah.
Build it for yourself because at the end of the day, that's all that should matter. Because just these hobbies, it's a lot of time and energy, a lot of money, and I personally I couldn't do it any other way. Yeah, we were going on about building the cars and doing it for yourself. And then we talked a little bit about Rocket Bunny and his shop. And that reminds me of like a recent video I watched of Hoonigan Autofocus, where I'm drawing a blank, the photographer. He's like one of the biggest ones, automotive photographers. But anyways, he went to Veris, their facility,
Yeah.
and it's such a huge, like if you're in the tuner scene, like that brand is so huge, and the quality of their aero and their builds are like world class. And the facility is looks like a little farm. It looks like a little barn, and you go in, and these guys are just it's cool, man. It's so dope to see. It's so inspiring to see like a little shop like that with a handful of people just taking pride in their craft and not worrying about their social media, how many likes or how many follows, and they just keep doing them. They're just still a guy in the back drawing out the designs, no computers, no nothing, and then that gets transferred over into the clay room where there's a guy just carving it out on the cars, and then it gets made into carbon fiber and fiberglass, and the rest is history. So as a startup business, that's really inspiring. As like, are there any other kind of like brands that have inspired you and kind of like what kickstarted your own brand like TBA?
Oh, TBA. Well, it's sort of funny. So, back in the day, it was actually the original brand was a thing called Tito Boy Approved. It was a Filipino-based brand. I had a partner, and he was Filipino, and basically, I was just supposed to be sort of in the back scene. One of my side passions is design. I just like design and aesthetics and stuff like that, right? And so I'd come up with some designs for him, and we'd put on some shirts, and we'd put it out there. And it's basically just like a parody brand. But he got caught up with life things, and he got busy, and then he wasn't able to carry it on anymore. And so I had arranged it so we had some space at like Importfest because I was the ops director there, and we had some extra floor space. So I was like, oh, you know what? Can I sign out a little space for her to start up a little mini brand? And that's where we put the Tito Boy Approved. Once that fell through, it was still there, and I was like, I still wanted a creative outlet for that, right? And one thing was that at that time, you had all these other brands like the Hundreds, Supreme, Bathing Ape and stuff like that. And you see all these street brands, and they're based on like hip hop, they're based on like skateboarding, they're based on like street culture, right? And the automotive brand, like automotive space, tuner scene, I felt was very much a street brand, but there was no real street brand in existence. I think the biggest one was probably like Fat Lace Illis at that time. They were just sort of they were coming up, and but yeah, like in that space, I just felt that the automotive scene was just not being seen in that public space, and it should be there. There should be something there, right? So then I started building designs based on that, like bring up tuner culture and stuff like that. So that's the beginning of TBA brand. So yeah, basically that.
So did you start off with just t-shirts? Like what was, what really inspired you? Like what kind of aesthetic and what kind of, what was your thought process as the years went on, like your
Well,
tastes have evolved and stuff like that?
yeah. So okay. So at the very beginning, like I've always had that idea of jumping into apparel, but like back in the day, like even back in the early 2000s, even with our squad, and some of the other scenes that I thought about doing a shirt or something just for the team or whatever. But the thing was that with that is that at that time, like it didn't like the amount of customability wasn't available at the volume that I would need it at. For example, I could create a shirt with a custom tag, and stuff like that, and create all the little custom features to make it look like it's an authentic branded shirt back in 2000, but I need to do it in like 10,000 units, right? And at that time, there's no way I'd be able to move 10,000 units or whatever, right? Fast forward to like 2010, 2011, I got a partner, and then we were able to look around, and then we found options where, we could do it at a volume of 50 pieces. So 50 pieces to 100 pieces where we could go and control the labeling. So like, when you picked it up, it didn't say Gildan or like, or Under Armour or something like that on the tag. You would say TBA brand on it, right? And medium, and all that special stuff. Because if I was ever going to do something, as I said, very much into the aesthetics, it has to be complete. It has to, you have that vision, right? And so when you create that product, it's not going to be half-assed or anything, because especially with your name going to be on it, you want to make sure that that piece represents the exact vision that you had in mind, right? So fast forward to TBA brand. At that point, that was just basically the time where it became possible for me to create that piece, and make it look complete. So that's when basically when I started TBA brand.
And when was that? What year?
2012.
Okay.
Yeah, 2012, 2013, around that point. So yeah, our first big shirt was our tuna on white, no crust. So if you remember that one. So, and it's funny because like we could sort of get into this. Like I created a shirt that said tuna on white. It didn't say on white, but it says tuna, no crust, right? But the main factor was that it was on a white T-shirt, right? So it's basically that whole concept is tuna on white on a white T-shirt and no crust, right? And that was a really cool shirt, and it's sort of ironic, like because we dropped that year, and then just later on that year, unfortunately, we found out about the passing of Paul Walker, and that was really devastating. Actually, that it's funny. Like that was the first time I ever like felt something in the gut in terms of a public personality like losing. Like you'd hear public personalities dying or whatever, and you're like, you feel sorry, but you don't really whatever, right? But I still remember like Paul Walker when he passed away. Like I still even remember the day. Like exactly. Like I was even with my son. We were out eating, and we were even talking about it. We were excited about the new movie. They had just recently dropped the trailer, and there was a hint of an R32 in the background, a gray one, and we're like all excited to go see the movie or whatever. And then we got news of it just later that day, like from two or three of my friends down in Cali that heard the passing. They were posting about it. I'm like, what is this really? And then called my other friend, and like for that first hour or two, there was no real reports about it. And then finally confirmation started coming through, like on bigger networks like CNN and stuff like that, that it was real, that it wasn't some prank or whatever. And yeah, that amazingly, yeah, it was weird. It actually hit hard, right? And it was just because like it was cool that there was a celebrity at that level that took the tuner scene to heart, right? He wasn't just a guy acting that part, right? Like he actually loved the scene, and that was actually cool to see because, like as I said, like we didn't. The tuna culture in general wasn't getting a lot of love. We were like public enemy number one, most hated. Cops would pull us over all the time. Well, still do, right? Give us the hardest time ever or whatever. And but yeah, just have a public celebrity like that step up and say, hey, you know what, this scene is actually pretty cool. Like and as much as people want to knock. Like I remember when it first came out, people were like Fast and Furious 1 was like cheese and all this or whatever. But to be honest, that was pretty close to how it used to really go down back in the day, right? Like the whole scene and what it looked like and whatever. You could go to Woodbine and 16th and see you'd feel like you're right inside the movie right there, right? So, but yeah, when he passed away, that was pretty big and pretty sad. But yeah, it was just unfortunate. But yeah, that was our first piece, and we've done a couple iterations since, but that's probably our best selling piece when we re-release or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember that shirt. I remember Mars, a friend of ours had that shirt, and he wear it all the time. He was he loved that shirt. But you touched on Paul Walker and his passing, and up until like back then I wasn't really too like as immersed into the car scene and the figures in the car scene as I am now. And I always thought he was just an actor. I always thought he was just like, yeah, he just played a role, and it was a cool movie, and it has cool cars and this and that. But then when he passed away, you started hearing all the stories of the kind of person he really was, how much of an enthusiast he actually was, and how he loved cars and his his generosity and the kind of human being that he was. So he was definitely a bright light within the car culture. And like you said, there's a lot of stigma around the car scene, and doing these events where we're always up to no good and this and that. So I guess things have a funny way of working out. So I'm glad that that shirt was such a a success for you guys. It was a little bit of a tribute to the impact that he had on car culture. But the Fast and Furious franchise, you've seen it come and to evolve it to where it has now. And how would you say that franchise influenced the scene over here, the scene in the States and globally?
Yeah, wow, it's sort of weird. It's so funny. Like, when it started off, I always thought it was, I actually thought the first one, the story was really good. And then, it just basically the story went down and the level of the car builds went up, right? But, that was for the first 3 or 4 movies. But now it's just gone, like, sort of off a bit. Like, I don't even think it's about cars anymore. Like, it's basically an yeah, it's an action film, but like it's not about the tuner scene anymore, right? It's basically about the characters themselves. So it's really sort of diverse from that. Like maybe the first, as I said, the first 3 maybe, but after that it's gotten off topic. They're enjoyable to watch. Don't get me wrong; they're enjoyable to watch. It's just I'm waiting for the next
a revival of a character.
Yeah, no, like no one dies in that show apparently, and I'm just waiting for Aliens now. That's the only thing that could top it off and bring it up to the next level. It's like that's the only thing they haven't introduced yet. But
do you think Aliens can take down Vin Diesel?
No way. There's no way. If you could go through a concrete wall, man, no way. But it's like it's earned its title. Was it Fast and Ridiculous? Is it? So it was funny because like one part I was like, yeah, predicting spacecrafts, right? Alien spacecrafts, and then they had those drones come into, and that was at the seventh or eighth one. I was just like, oh yeah, that's right, because how can you how do you top a submarine, right?
Yeah.
Because well, you top the submarine with a tank, right? Was it the tank first and then the submarine, or I can't even remember the order. But you just have to bring something up the game, right? So that's why I say the next one has to be aliens.
Aliens, maybe like a battleship cruiser
Maybe.
from the Navy or something.
Aliens Predator crossover.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
It's only a matter of time before like Elon Musk comes in and plays like the villain or something, and rockets get involved in electric cars. It's
But it would be fun to see another car movie though, like the street tuner scene. Because I don't think we had, like as I said, we had the couple first ones of Fast and Furious, and I don't think we've really seen another since. So, yeah.
yeah. Those first four movies were pretty cool. I think the one that stuck out to me the most was Tokyo Drift, just because it was based in Japan, and just seeing a little bit of the car scene and car culture in Japan. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Thinking about the iconic builds and cars that were part of that movie, and then Han as a character.
Oh yes.
And his hangout and his persona and his swag. It was just to see like an Asian play a lead role like that.
Yeah.
And to kind of have that presence. It was really inspiring, man. It was really cool to see. That I think that's why it stuck out to me the most.
What stuck out to me the most is that snack. I always wanted to find out what that snack was. He always, I don't know if you know, see in 3, he's always popping a snack. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah,
go up the
yeah,
elevator,
yeah.
down the elevator. He's always eating a snack. And I don't know, like, I actually asked a couple of my friends in Japan or whatever. It's like, the screen stills, it's like, try to zoom in on that. It's like, hey, what is this? Can you find this? I want this, right? Yeah, no one's been able to find out what that snack is. So
We'll find out. We'll hunt it down. Because it's funny because there's a TikTok that went viral, or not viral, but it was trending with TJ Hunt. He's an influencer in the car scene in Cali, and he was doing a TikTok with Han, just standing in front of the car eating a snack.
Yeah.
And then we did our own spin on that, right? And that was actually our most successful TikTok to date. I think we had like 180,000 plays
Nice.
on that one.
Nice.
So
Got to find out that snack, man. It's a snack that does it. Like,
yeah. Whenever we find out that snack, we're importing a skid of it, putting one of those Japanese vending machines outside, and that's it.
That's it. It's over. Game over.
Yeah.
People will fly in. It'll be a tourist attraction. All over North America will come and fly in for that. No, but you're right. Han as a main character, that was really cool. But yeah, then they killed him off apparently. But then they're bringing him back, right? That's the whole revival thing, right? For this latest one.
Yeah, no, he came back already, didn't he? For the last one, I haven't really been following the last couple episodes, but I think the last
That'd
one.
be a question to the viewers.
Yeah,
But, but from my understanding, no, like if it's anything, it's just basically the order of how the movies go. So like if he's in the latest one, is because that happened before that time lapse in terms of when he passed away, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah. But as I said, yeah, as you said, no one dies in that series. Everyone comes back.
I wanted to touch on Importfest, and
Oh, yeah.
you played a big role in the judging and seeing that show evolve over the years, and how big it is, and how important it is to kind of like the local scene. What are your thoughts? Like,
Well, here's a funny story. So this goes back to Arthur too. I know you wanted some stories like this. So back in the day before I was head judge, there was another guy, George, who used to be the head judge, and we do the judging, and you judge the cars, and then at the very end, when you have your top five, you'd have a discussion. It's like who's best of show, right? So you'd have your discussion in your boardroom based on the points and whatever. And we used to get into a lot of arguments, disagreements, right? Because he was a big audio guy. He loved audio, right? So at that time, there's this truck called the Batmobile. It was an SUV, totally done up, like inside, screens all over the place, whatever, audio, like through the razoo, like neon lights all over, like, the whole airbrushed everything, right? Like huge, massive, big screen popping out of the trunk, screens inside the engine bay, stuff like that. And I was more on the side of the JDM side, right? You'd be going up against like, Supras and stuff like that, or fully well done, wide body kit, wheels, fitment, everything's perfect, engine bays, like, polished and everything, a roll cage, full interior, bridge seats and all that type of stuff. And, we'd have arguments, hey man, like, which one should these, who should win, right? I'm like arguing for the Supra or whatever, and he'd be arguing against to say, hey, no, it's the truck, and because like both these cars are so well done, they're scoring off the sheets, right? You have your scoring sheet, and basically Importfest was like point per mod, and these guys built their cars to compete as well. So they would score off the points. So like basically they're maxing out the score sheets, both of them, So it's basically, as going down to say, hey, which one do you like better, right? And I used to like, man, like if you're cruising down Yonge Street, right? And then this is what I used to say, like if you're cruising down Yonge Street, which one would you rather be seen in? Right? Would you rather be seen in the Supra or the Batmobile? And we used to get into so many arguments, right? Don't get me wrong, me and George, we love each other, right? But like, just these type of agreements, we always used whatever, right? Because I was more about the like motors a bit, but like this is a car show, so it was like more of the aesthetics, the wide body kit, the rims, and everything versus the full audio, right? Which he was very much into, right? But anyways, fast forward a bit, we go through these arguments, and then I bought the R32. So they were at Importfest, and I had just bought it literally. I had just gotten just a week before Importfest was there, right? And I was selling my Jetta at that time, my VW. And so I brought the VW in to show with my Team R squad. And, and on the Saturday, when the day of the show, I needed a way to get home as well because I brought the Jetta on the Friday, and so I was selling it at the show to one of the guys there, and he was going to drive it off, but so I had no lift home, right? So Saturday going to the show, Bassett told me, hey, there's some floor space, right? And I had talked to Bassett, he's the owner of Importfest, and he said, you know what, just come with the Skyline, right? Bring it in. I have space for it, just put it there, right? So I said, okay, cool, and I'll bring in a Skyline. And this is back in like 2005 or is it 2006? And so this is the very first year that you could import Skylines, right? So, there's not a lot around. Like even if you did see, there was maybe a couple, like very few that are in Toronto, right? So I drive it into Toronto, into the show, and I just park it and I leave, and, we go do the judging at the end of the day, and we come back, and so we're in the judging room now, right? And so my buddy George, he comes in, and he comes and says, mind you, I told you, we always disagree on stuff, right? And he says, all right, hold up, right? I don't know what it is. There's this car downstairs I know for sure has to win best JDM, right? Or like whatever, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about, right? It's like, I don't know. It doesn't have any tags on it or whatever, but this car has to win. I don't care what you say, Neal. This car does it for me. This thing is sick, right? And he's going on and on about this car, and I'm going, oh, really, right? And I think it was only Bassett that knows about this, and he's there, and I look over, and he's sort of snickering because he knows exactly what it is, right? So, yeah, I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, there's a guy who brought in an Skyline R32, right? It's like, what? And I'm like playing dumb here, right? And I'm letting him talk it on, right? And he's like, "Yeah, man, this car's amazing. Like, it's sitting there, whatever. There's no competition card on there, but it has to win. It has to win something, right?" And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's not going to win. I already have my best JDM here on the list, right? And he's like, "No, I don't care what you say. This car is going to win. This car is the sickest thing I've ever seen." I was like, "Oh, really, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." And he's talking it up, and finally he says. And I finally got to a point where Bassett says, "Do you know whose car that is?" And it's like, "No, whose is it?" And then Bassett shows them, I think it was Bassett, yeah, points to me, right? And it's like, And his face just drops. Like, no way. There's no fucking way it's your car, right? It's like, what are you talking about? He says, no way. And then he's going on, fuck me if it's your car, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I just pulled out the key and I just put the key and I just slid it on the table, right? And he's like, fuck this. And he just stormed out of the room. And he's just like, it was like whatever, right? But that was like one of the best days ever. Because we never agreed on anything.
Yeah.
We used to fight on everything or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then for him to come around and then drop that spiel. If he watches his podcast, he's gonna get a kick out of it. But yeah, like, to this day, when anyone brings it up, he just like, yeah, he just leaves the room. It's like,
Don't worry, we'll make sure to clip that story, and we'll find George and we'll send it to him. We'll get some photos of back when the R32 looked like that, and then yeah, that's a funny ass story.
yeah. But yeah, that was part of judging and whatever. But yeah, as I said, like when we were talking off camera about that, local car shows have such a big influence on the scene, right? If they're a well-respected show and people like that show and they want to compete and win at that show basically dictates what that car scene is going to look like, right? As I said, like for example, if that show decides to say 75% of the score is on audio, right? Everyone in that scene is going to be building their car with an emphasis on audio to win at that show because they want to win at that show, be seen at that show and win at that show, right? Be recognized there, right? So it's almost like Fitted, right? When I worked at Fitted, the main emphasis is fitment. So what does everyone do? Everyone builds their car to the extreme for fitment, right? And so depending on the notoriety of Fitted, that's the majority of that scene that would build that car to that look and feel, right? So, you know, in that aspect, I feel like, yeah, car shows have a huge influence on the car scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think about that, and if there's that much kind of like influence on the builds, and to me, wanting to encourage people to build cars for themselves and what matters to them, what do you think would be a good judging formula to promote that and to encourage that, instead of like, okay, there's audio here, or like, like you said Importfest had like 1 point per mod, and guys would just throw like a gajillion mods on their cars.
Yeah.
But like, from all your experiences and your whole journey so far as a judge, being all these car shows, how would you see, how would you run a show based on execution of all the parts all together with the theme, and all of that?
Well, okay, so this is funny. So on the opposite of that, when I used to run the Yoko team and the Toyo Tires team, I used to run their sponsored teams, their programs for the Toronto area. Actually Canada. I'd say Canada. And basically what I would tell people who I admitted to the team was that shows are important, but I don't care about trophies, right? At the end of the day, I got you in here. I accepted your proposal and I sponsored your car because of the aesthetics of your car. Because, 20,000 people, 30,000 people will go through a car show, right? A couple hundred will stay for the awards to find out who won, right? Everyone else is about taking selfies in front of that car, taking pictures in front of that car of their favorite car, right? And they take that home and then they go and post that on social media, right? That's what counts more, right? Or, a magazine comes through and says, hey, look, this car is cool. I want to feature it, right? So for me, I don't really like, and this is all depends on where people stand, because I know people still want the trophy. I know people who will die hard build to win the trophy. But for me, it's always been, as I said, build it for yourself, right? Build it for that aesthetic that you have, that vision that you see, because at the end of the day, the majority of people who come to that show, they're not going to know who won that show. They're going to go for their favorite car. And if that aesthetic that you built resonates with the majority of the public, well, you just won the majority of the public, right? And I feel that that's way more important than the trophy in terms of, at least in terms of reach. Like I'm talking from the perspective of running these sponsorship programs, right? So like for me as a car, like, seeing the cars, like, yeah, like I don't care how many trophies you won. I care about like how many impressions you made, right, with that car. So as I said, it's still, and as I said, if I've already said yes to you, that means I already like your aesthetic. So just keep on doing what you're doing, and build the cars how you see fit, and that's good enough.
Yeah, I wonder if like in a show you can poll like every single guest that comes in before they leave. What was your favorite car?
Oh,
What car?
public choice, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
if you had your, what do you call it? Public choice award, I guess. Yeah.
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 Did you guys do that at Importfest?
No, we didn't at Importfest. I suggested that at Driven, so, but we'll see. We'll see.
So it was we left off on Importfest and your experience with that. Um, where was that in the timeline of kind of your your journey as through the car scene? Started off with
Oh, yeah, okay.
our squadron and
All right,
all
yes.
that.
So we started 2001, started modding the car. 2002, 2003 is when I got into our squadron. As I said, that was a big experience. Like, Derek and Pierre allowed me to get in there, and then that really got me into the scenes in terms of the whole industry side, in terms of exposure, in terms of sponsorships, how they worked, integration of those companies with car shows and stuff like that. So after our squadron, I started working with Importfest. Started off as a judge, moved on to head judge, eventually became operations manager there. Then a friend from here originally, who had moved to Cali, came back to Toronto, and he had seen this scene that was blowing up in Cali. It was basically the fitment scene, and so he started this company called Stretch and Poke and invited me in to help out with that. So he listed me as a co-founder. Helped him as the marketing director for that. It's called Stretch and Poke. I don't know if you remember that from back in the day, but that was back in 2009, 2010. That went on for like a year or two, and then just because Stretch and Poke could be taken as in different contexts than that, and to be a bit more professional, uh, he decided to change it to Fitted Lifestyle. And so that became the Fitted, so moved over to that and became the marketing director for that, and we built up that scene for a bit. During that period is when I started TBA brand as well. And then after that, I stopped with Fitted and then concentrate more on TBA brand, just because I wasn't giving it enough attention. And then at the end of that, I was approached by Driven. And so Driven approached me, and they were looking for a person on the ground in Toronto because they wanted to expand out into the east to become a legit national-wide car show tour. And so they approached me, and then I basically accepted their offer to be the director for the Driven Toronto car show here in Toronto. So, and that brings us up to here, I guess. So yeah, so Importfest is around beginning, middle of the whole storyline. Yeah.
With the Driven Show being the most recent event that you were the director of, was that 2 years ago?
Oh, that's
Or
three now, I guess,
three?
because last year we didn't do it, and then the year before that was the second one, and the year before that was the first. Yeah, so 3 years.
So these shows that go nationwide, how many cities did Driven stop at?
Oh, now you're gonna test me. I'm gonna get in trouble now. But it's Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Winnipeg, Toronto, Halifax, and I think we're trying to get into Well, we are trying to get into Montreal. Yeah.
And that like I didn't get a chance to go to the show. It was
Shame.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Shame on you.
3 years ago,
See, Toronto not supporting Toronto. This is exactly what I was talking about earlier.
for shame, for shame. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to give you my T37 as a token of my forgiveness.
That's on record, right?
Hosting a show like that, there's probably so much going on. I know you had, was it Nakai? Was he at the show?
Yeah, Akai was at the second one, yeah. No, actually, first and second, yeah.
He was at the first. What's your experience with running shows and the challenges, the difficulties, and what's your take on all that?
Shows is yeah, it's a tricky thing. Like it's sort of difficult because like the hardest thing is to differentiate it from a car meet. Because car meets have gotten really popular ever since the evolution or the introduction of like say like in Artefa, where they took a basically a car meet and converted it into a car show, right? Now you have to sort of differentiate because there's a lot more investment between holding a car show in a parking lot versus holding a car show at a venue, right? You're taking it about to a larger scale, and so the biggest differentiation with that is to bring something that something interesting and something new that the normal car enthusiast can't see at a car meet, right? And that's one thing that really struck me with Driven was that they were there to create something, for that public to see. It's not just a gathering of cars, of show cars, for people to see. They're bringing something a bit more substantial to the game, and that was bringing personalities. So to bring personalities like Nakai and like Kiamura to Toronto, which no normal person, at a car scene would be able to see unless, on their own, unless they went and traveled to Japan, right? Or something like that, right? So for them to go out and do something like that was really cool. And I think that's the separator in terms of Driven and say a normal car show, is because with that, they have the power, the reach, right, to go out to personalities like that and bring these people to Toronto to give Toronto an experience where they wouldn't be able to get at a car meet. So, and hopefully people, when they come to Driven, they see that, right? And that's the main thing that, we're trying to bring to the table, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. How much does it cost to fly one of these guys out here to a show?
We'll just say lots, lots. But as again, I say, like it's totally amazing. Like even for me, right? Like I saw Kiyomiya. I met him in Japan before he came over. But like when he was here, it was so cool to have him, have a picture of him sit in my car, to sign the dash of it, and to say, wow, like he signed a dash of my R32, right? And so like, there's no way in hell I'd be able to do that anywhere else unless if I ship the car to Japan, right? So yeah, so that type of experience. And there was a lot of other guys too, girls as well. Hopefully I didn't, that were at the show that were able to take a picture with him, to have him sit in their car and then sign too. Same with Nakai as well, right? So, hopefully, we gave people an experience that, they'll remember. So
yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. Hearing you kind of bring that up, of the influencers that kind of get a lot of attention. So the brands like Rocket Bunny, RWB, the guys that build cars, that have huge followings like TJ Hunt and guys like Matt from Obsessed Garage, like there's a big following, and to kind of have them come and represent car culture at an event that is that separation between just a meet and hosting a big event like that, because it's something that we would love to try and do one day. It's definitely a dream and a goal of mine to see if you can really create an atmosphere that really sheds a lot of that ego and pretentiousness and some of the negatives that come with that, and just have more of a really cool community, a really cool celebration of car culture. And that's the one thing that I've never really enjoyed about car shows, especially Importfest. I went a couple years with Tom and the Next Mod crew, and just experiencing that. And I just loved building my car. I just loved making it my own, and being a part of doing it with friends and doing it with the crew and doing it with that's the best part. Rolling out together, getting to the show, hanging out at the show, meeting other people, and then I saw all the politics that came with that.
No.
I
Yeah.
saw all the grown men whining and crying about a plastic trophy.
Right. Yeah.
And it was at that point where I was like, yeah, this scene's not for me. I'm like, I don't want to really be around this. I don't, if it's cool, you get to see all the builds, you get to meet a lot of people, but then at the end, there's just a lot of just really weird things that people fixate on.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I still enjoy car shows though, but seeing what you sort of stepped on is the family atmosphere, right? The team atmosphere. Because
Yeah.
when I was with our squadron, when we used to hit those 30 shows, it was the car shows was something, right, in the rewards. But the most memorable parts were driving to each venue, right? Cruising with 10 cars, all modified, driving down the highway, I just wish we had more footage of that type of stuff, right? Like that stuff is just you can't trade, right? Like that part was more important than the car show itself, right? Just traveling down, all together as a squad or whatever, and just enjoying the ride, right? Enjoying your cars driving down. So,
Yeah, I agree.
but yeah, like the trophies was always, well, in my mind was always secondary. Like we didn't really care too much about the trophies. Is more about just going there, showing up as a team, lining up, parking together, and then you see your section and you're just seeing all your cars together. We look like a bunch of Skittles, but still, it looked cool, right? So,
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I totally agree. That it's all those moments and memories in between the car shows and all that really, those are the things that you remember. Those are things that mean a lot. It's when you're bonding with your friends and your relationship grows, and seeing each other's cars evolve over the years, as each individual person evolves, and their tastes change and stuff like that too. So I think that is that'd be cool to kind of see footage if you guys had that. But I think about where this industry can evolve into, and where we could potentially evolve a car meet is along the lines of what Driven has done. Is getting the influencers.
yeah,
Yeah, hosting a big event maybe once a year, where you bring influencers who are a big part of the car scene. So brands and companies that really embody what you deem is important to the car culture. So guys like Nakai from RWB and Rocket Bunny and Liberty Walk, and even all the smaller shops in Japan, if to even get one of their cars to come down, or even to get some of their merch, get some of
Yeah.
their die-cast car models, and that's why that's all a possibility. Is like nowadays you can get these models made of any build, any car that you want.
Yeah.
And to kind of have that visual representation of some kid that drools over an RWB, and that he can come to the show and maybe we meet Nakai and get it signed. You won't be able to find that anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that's how you can spark that. And family and community is a big part of what we're doing here and what we're building here. So having vendors, maybe local vendors that cook food and have little booths set up, or having like a whole retail store that has all the specific, like all different types of merch from all the different influencers. So maybe some stuff from Reggie at Night Runner over in Vancouver, and then you have a little bit of like Obsessed Garage products from Matt from Florida and his brand, and then you have guys like certain brands from Europe, or like guys from Cali, and just having like a melding pot of all the beautiful parts of car culture, and people can come and see it all in one place, executed well. It's very ambitious to even think about running something like that, but I think that would be, once you have your audience, once you're connected with like-minded people, and that's the beauty of creating content and building your brand, is that you don't have to resonate with everyone, but the people who actually care about the car culture and the people who are a part of that. If you were to put out an event and host it and do it that way, I think that would be worth trying out. That would be pretty dope.
Oh, that's really cool. And it's funny, like people ask me, what do you guys always feel about competition or other shows or whatever? And I always say I welcome it. It's like it's good for the scene. Like I always explain it this way: if a guy, like, it was for me, right, and I'm interested in the car shows, right, and I like that exposure. I'm not gonna build and spend 30 grand on a build if there's only one show, right? If there's 5 big shows in Toronto in a year, okay, now it's a bit more reasonable, a bit more realistic for me to, hey, I'm going to make a build because I got 5 times now to go and show off my work and my piece, right? So versus just the one, right? So yeah, I hope, I encourage that. I encourage other people to create events, because it just basically gives validation to the scene and helps it grow, right? Because back in the day, in the heyday, when it was really big with like Dark Knights, getting like 10,000 competitors and something like that, way out in Markham Fairgrounds, you know. Oh, not 10, yeah, not 10,000, was it 1,300 cars? I don't know, but it was something big, and and to get their attendance up there, right? There was all these other shows happening as well, right? That were in there happening. So there was first episode. There was also Importfest. Trying to remember. There was also SCP came down to Toronto. I forgot what they called their show when they came down to Toronto. But SCP used to be a big organization out of Montreal. But in the heyday, there was like about 4 or 5 big event holders, running shows every year, right? Versus now is very few, right? So it'd be good to get back into that mold. So
Yeah, that would definitely be a cool thing to tackle, and I think it kind of goes back with what's important to us at Kodawari is community. So, if you build that community and you show people and you get them to believe in what you're trying to do, hosting an event like that will be a little bit more attainable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still remember the event that you held at Next Mod Mississauga with Gran Turismo and putting down the fastest lap time.
Oh yeah.
We might have to do another one of those, because the guys love playing Gran Turismo here. We actually have Suzuka up, and the times of who holds the fastest lap time right now. David Hong, our resident YouTube star, he's got minute 59 seconds with a Porsche RSR.
My favorite track is Tsukuba, though.
Tsukuba?
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
That one I've memorized. This is one of those tracks I've memorized inside and out. It's just like It's like one of those like you always get in love with one track, and that was from Gran Turismo too. And just like you just memorize the track, so you can drive any car on, and that's the track you use to test out cars, because once you've got the hang of it, all the brake points, you can drive it blindfolded or whatever. And that's one dream. If I ever had the dream, is to be able to fly my car over to the Tsukuba circuit and do a couple laps on that. Now that'd be
That'd be dope. That'd be dope.
That'd be dope.
You know,
So
like
Suzuka, 1 minute 59.
you want to get some lap times after this? Let's do it. But yeah, that'd be cool. You know, a dream of mine also is to take, you know, the NSX, build it in a way, like the direction that I'm taking the build is to create the best driving experience possible with that platform. It's a very special car. I never really understood how special that car was until I got it. So thank you to Chris Hoare for, you know, passing on that story to, or that car that for me to kind of explore and take it with Kodawari. But to ship that car around the world to my favorite driving roads, to my favorite tracks,
Yeah.
and to really experience it and drive the shit out of that car, because yeah, it really is something else. And I've talking. I always thought it was the shape. I always thought the fact that it was a mid-engine, and with the way the cars are built nowadays and how analog that car is, and the sensation of speed, it's something else. And I've spoken to people who have driven a lot of cars, and they own a lot of cars, a lot of very special drivers' cars, and there seems to be like a general sentiment that the NSX is still very, very special, and it's still like top tier in terms of that feeling.
I totally agree.
Feeling you get when you're in the car, and you're not going particularly fast, but it's just how the car speaks to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that you know your chapter with Pinky has come to a close, what's next?
I don't know. I guess, well, for the first part, I just got to, during the pandemic, like as I said, TBA brand is more a community family based type brand. And so we really relied on our exposure in terms of gatherings and meets and stuff like that. But like over the last year and a half, that's really been brought to a standstill. So hopefully that lifts up. And once that lifts up, a bit more concentration on the TBA brand. Looking to build another platform on top of that, just because, as I said, I've always been interested in aesthetics, and I've done aesthetic work for other companies in here and in Japan in terms of look and feel and branding and stuff like that. So that's another passion of mine. So going to be coming soon. So it's basically like a design house or something like that to basically harbor all these other projects under.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
So like a design house within like the streetwear scene, the car scene,
Just
or
in general.
just in general.
Just in general. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. No,
But it'll probably be started in terms of the car scene, just because that's where most of my work lies currently. And if it branches out beyond that, then so be it. But no, yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. But car wise, any more project cars?
Car-wise?
What tickles your fancy in this day and age, with the market being as hot as it is? You know, are you, what are you planning on getting? If you're not planning on getting anything, if you had $100,000, if there was no budget, like what is your dream garage look like? What does your dream build look like moving forward for
My dream garage would be a Porsche and an R34. That would be it. One Euro and one JDM.
Yeah.
And that'd be it. But for me now, like right now, the main reason why I got rid of the current project is just because I didn't get a chance to use it a lot. So this next build in the interim, if I do one, is basically something that I would be able to daily. Something that I'd be able to drive every day, enjoy every day, and be seen every day. Versus, like my last project was, last year I put along maybe 1,000 kilometers at most the whole year.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be the goal. In terms of platform, I have no idea yet what that would be. But
Well, you have a family.
yeah, so
So it has to be practical.
it has to be semi-practical.
Can't be can't be like an M2 competition with no like with
Full
baby seats, you know, like that kind of stuff. So let's see if I can help you.
Exactly.
Let me, you know,
so
this
it's
is
like the Subarus are in there, you know, or if I go like the Euros are in there, I can still go with like a VW or something like that. As I said, like it's funny. I guess brand loyalty besides the R32, I believe all my other cars have been VWs, right? Like, you know, little Mark 3s, Mark 4s, couple Mark 6s, you know, had a Tiguan, a Touareg, all VW, right?
holy smokes, yeah.
VW plug, remember me.
Man, like, do the Golf R's do anything for you?
Yeah, the Golf R.
Yeah.
Golf R's on the short list. I see that. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, that's definitely, that would be a great daily, especially with our Canadian climate, driving it all drive all year round. You can have, man, something badass would be like the new RS6 Avant. That would be, you know, that's a little on the
Baller
premium
side.
baller side,
But yeah, like even the 84 wagon, yeah, like, you know, and build it up from that. Yeah, no, that's on the short list too.
that would be
wagon.
really cool.
Yeah.
That's a dream family car of mine. That
Yeah?
RS6.
Yeah,
When I saw that car
that's sturdy.
come out, it was like, no fucking way. Are you kidding me? I love wagons.
Well, it's even before the RS6 has always been the all road, right? The A4 wagon. Oh, that thing has just been that thing is so sick.
Yeah.
But it's funny though, like as a kid I was like, a wagon, station wagon, who the hell wants that? And then you grow older, it's like, oh, not bad.
Yeah.
But one general rule, no minivans.
Yeah.
X-nay on the minivans. I will make 2 trips. I remember, you know, when I first started my family, and it's like people were talking about minivans. You should get a minivan. It's like, no. If I have to make 2 trips, I'll make 2 trips to transport the kids over. There's no way in hell I'll ever be caught with a minivan. And the reason why is that it's not like we used to people talk why you hate on minivans so much. It's like it's not a mode of transportation. Like, look, seriously, like if it's a real mode of transportation, it has a racing series, right? You race anything with as a mode of transportation. Like you see Yaris's have a racing series, right? You see Mack trucks have a racing series, right? You know, you see all these other cars like have racing series, like Jeeps and whatever. There's no racing series for minivans, right? There's none, right? Because it's no, next thing on a minivan. Not a real mode of transportation.
That's a good point.
You race camels, you race horses, you race dogs. Those are all modes of transportation. Minivan, there's no minivan series. Unless if someone could show me a minivan series, minivans don't exist.
All right, so we got to start a minivan racing series so that you know, that door could potentially open one day for Neal. And man, like I'm gonna circle back to your first story that you shared with us, which is the Integra Type R and what that car meant to you, and how you went about to try to acquire it, and how
I still love that car though.
the dealership treated someone who was looking to buy it. And yeah, it's the one car that I'm still searching for, that I would love to add to our Kodawari collection is that Integra Type R, although it's getting
Very expensive. I saw the last one go for 50 or 60, was it?
No,
More? Higher? Was it
the
higher?
last one that went for auction, super clean, low mileage. I'm thinking like 3,000 kilometers on the odometer. $150,000 USD.
Wow.
$150,000 USD. So these cars are collector cars now.
I don't mind the high mileage. Like 3,000, it doesn't really matter to me. Like,
yeah.
the mileage,
Yeah,
whatever. Because it's funny because I was selling my car, right? And guys like commented on it. Thanks to Peter for helping me on that. Next mod, he posted it up, and I think it was on his thread. A guy says, you know, oh, the car is cool, but the kilometers are a little too high, right? And my car was R32. 30 years old, 31 years old, had 131,000 kilometers on it. 31 years old, 131,000 kilometers, but the kilometers was a little too high. That's ridiculous. But anyways, but yeah, like motors could be rebuilt, right? And that's easy to do and whatever, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, motors. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's it's crazy to see where what people, everyone has to each their own. People like to buy cars and just let it, have like a super mint representation of the car and not drive it. For myself personally, I just love driving the cars too much.
yeah. You gotta drive it a bit. Like as I said, my most biggest argument about my previous build was because I didn't get to drive it as much. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
If you don't drive it, you can't enjoy it. Like, what's the purpose, right?
and the best part of building this business of ours is I have a reason to drive the NSX every single day. I'm
Yeah.
driving it every single day, and I'm enjoying it every single day. Every time we move the car out in the morning, warm up the engine. I'm like, okay, well the engine's warmed up. Might as well go for a rip. And it's a 30-year-old car. It's got 130,000 kilometers on, and I think hopefully when it's all said and done, I'll be closer to like 1 million kilometers on that car. That's how much I love driving it, and hope to take it all over the world and really share it with as many people as I can, because that car never fails to put a smile on my face. And every single person that I've driven in that car, they've come back with a smile. Just like uh, our teammate Nick over there. I took him for the first time, and he was giggling quite a bit. It was a lot of fun. Uh, One last thing before we wrap this up. How many? I've met your son.
Yeah.
How many kids do you?
Three.
3 kids?
Yeah. So one son and 2 daughters.
Yeah. Age?
Oh, now you're gonna put me on the spot again. Okay, so one's 21 this year, one's turning 16 this year, and then the last one is 10.
Okay. And they've grown up around the car scene too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How have they taken to it? How
My son is always like, yes, he grew up around it, so he loves it. I still remember, like, so when I first got the R32, he was about 5 years old or whatever. So we used to watch Initial D, and there was that one episode with Initial D with the R32 in it. It was gunmetal gray, and the one I had bought was gunmetal gray as well when I brought it over. Um, and I redid it, and I went away for the winter and came back pink. I still remember the day he saw it. He broke into tears crying because it was pink. He didn't understand it. Like, he was young. Like, he was 5, right? And he didn't understand. Like, he's like, he basically thought I ruined the car, right? Like, it was this, like, it's like, he was so sad that I had painted it pink. The tears, like, he wouldn't stop crying for like whatever. And but it's funny though, because like when he grew older and he understood it, and then he saw the following behind it, and he saw, like, because it was pink and it was something different, so cutting edge in terms of color on an R32, he got back and he started loving the car. It's like, oh yeah, this is so cool, like, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, he's a big Formula One fan. He's a big McLaren fan actually. So I think he's a Norris fan. So
Cool.
Lando.
Yeah.
Lando.
Yeah, I haven't really had a chance to follow Formula One this season yet, but I know they just released season 3 of the
Drive to
Netflix
Survive,
series.
yeah.
So that's an amazing series.
Yeah, that brought up the whole
Yeah.
popularity of it, like, to the roof. All these people now started watching.
And you know what it is? It's like to see the storylines of these drivers, of these brands, of what it takes to kind of race in something as crazy as F1. And I think people really fuck with that. People really connect through these ups and downs, these challenges, and it's really cool. I really enjoyed season 1 and 2. Yeah, I can't wait to watch season 3.
Yeah, the popularity of F1 has just gone through the roof. And it's funny because I just recently brought up a post. It was back in 2013, 14. And this is the beginning of the hybrid era, right? And a lot of F1 enthusiasts, including myself, thought that was the death of F1. Just because, it's basically went from these roaring, V8s, V10s, V12s, into this like little compact hybrid motor that, they're still loud, but it's not as loud and thundering as the old motors, right? And we're like, oh, this is it, it's done. Like, we're basically whatever, but it's blown up since then, right? And it was funny because watching the first race too, that one that I commented on was actually commenting on Lewis Hamilton. I think he had spun out on the first race or whatever, and it's like, oh, Lewis is done, right? And it's like whatever, and I guess this is the beginning of the end for this whole hybrid era. And lo and behold, look back 6 years later, he practically owned the whole hybrid era, right? So yeah, it's pretty cool to look back and say like, you know thinking that was the death of it, and now I think it's at a peak now. It hasn't been more popular than it has ever been, right? So yeah.
That's cool. How's McLaren doing this year?
They did okay in the first race. Yeah.
And what was your son's reaction to Pinky leaving?
He's a bit sad, but overall he understood.
Yeah.
It's like it's one of those things. It's like you could always go back and rebuild.
Yeah.
Right. Like if push came to shove, I don't know, I could go and pick up another R32 tomorrow, grab a rocket body kit, and build it up all over again. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Does he drive, and is he building anything, or?
He's still in the weights. He's still figuring it out.
Yeah.
Whatever. He's still in school. So after he finishes school, maybe. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's thanks for coming by and being a part of this, Neal.
All right, thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. I'm sorry I didn't make it out to the Driven show. And didn't mean to put you on the spot so many times. Hopefully, hopefully you had fun, and I know I certainly did. So.
All right, cool. Yeah, definitely had some fun. Definitely do this again sometime.
Of course, 100%.
Right.
All right. So. If people want to get to know you more and to kind of reach out to you and the TBA brand, what are your handles? Like what?
Instagram is just at TBA brand. And the website is tbabrand.com, and from there you could probably, from that social media, you could get hold of me or whatever. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
On tonight's program, ladies and gentlemen, we have something that's going to make you sick.